Okay, no person or system is going to save you. And it's not going to help you reach your desired goals or position in life. You have to do it yourself. You have to put in the work. My name is Alan Baker. I am a lifelong martial artist. I escaped the system as a young man to follow my dreams. And along that journey, I forged a mindset of accomplishment. This allowed me to achieve things that even I didn't think was possible, and sometimes I look back and still am surprised at what I have done in life. On this show, we're going to talk about those things and the mind tools that I learned from my different mentors and how they can help you move forward in your life, separate from the system, and achieve great things. Hey guys, welcome to the Warriors Path podcast. I am Alan Baker, and I'm here with Coach Bob Berge. And today we're going to be talking about the art of self-leadership and taking ownership of your own life. Yeah, the instructional stuff's on the archives, which have been growing.
Yeah.
It's like this morning, one of the things that's going on with me recently is, and it's related to getting released from the doctors around the first of the year. And so prior to that, I probably spent a year and a half to almost 2 years not going to the gym. And if you know me, that's difficult for me. That's the longest break I think I've had since I was 14. And it was miserable. So the doc finally said, look, you can go, just go slow. And one of the first things we did was call Rogue and order their new power rack. This thing's badass. And build a garage with Rogue dumbbells and training equipment. And I love it. It's one of those things you do and you go, I wish I had done this years ago. I've always gone to the gym. You get up, prepare, drink some coffee, flush your system out, and finally get in the car, go to the gym. And in the last 15, 20 years, you wait in line, because the dude's got to finish texting or talking to his mom before he gets off the damn machine so you can do something.
Now they're shooting videos in there.
Yeah. And so it takes a little time. And I think it also affects your level of intensity. Like you get in the zone, you're going. And people get in the way. There's no nice way to say that. And having it in the gym to just walk out there and just grind has been fantastic. And your schedule is like my schedule. Like lunch is 10 minutes. And then I go back and go to work. Lately, lunch will come around and I'll step out of the kitchen into the garage and I'll hammer it for 30 minutes and then come in and have my 10-minute meal and then go to lunch. And I love it. I mean, it's fantastic.
How many workouts do you say you do a day? Like some type of session where you're doing some kind of physical training. How many a day?
On a bad day, meaning I'm traveling for teaching or work, it's once a day. You get up early, get down, and hopefully you pick out a hotel that has decent facilities. On a good day, meaning I'm at home and I'm in control of my schedule, 2 to 3. If I haven't killed myself in the first 2, before I go to bed, I'll sneak out there again and I'll hit core again. And the nice thing is the equipment is set up for whatever area you're training. You don't have to set it up. You just walk out there and hit it because you'll change it all the next day.
I'm playing around with 4 distinct areas. I'm just trying this on myself because I'm 57 and I have to train a little different than I did years ago. I used to be able to really kill it and the next day I was fine. I could keep going. I'd be sore, but not injured. I was fine. Could keep going and train 3-4 hours a day. It was fine. No problem. And train pretty hard. Got away with that for a long time. And then didn't get away with it sometimes. But now I'm finding I really have to be smart about what I'm doing. And now, make no mistake, I'm still bringing it. Like I ran 8 miles this morning. That was the first thing I did. I got up, walked Molly for a mile, and then came back and ran for 8 miles on good old treadmill back there. And then had my shower, ate my breakfast, started my day. So I just switched back to mornings for running because I was doing the evenings for a while just because it sort of fit in and was getting comfortable doing that. And then the interruptions started happening again.
Yeah.
It just people need stuff, and for me, I turn everything off when I'm running. I don't want to be interrupted. I turn on music, and it's meditation for me, and I'm not available. I'm training. I'm not available. You can't get me. That was starting to become at least for me, like an issue. So I switched back to mornings. First thing, my cardio is done. So the four distinct areas that I'm playing around with, it's cardio. Obviously, that's the running, but doing it properly to where you're not pounding your legs so bad that you can't run the next day. Because I'm trying to get 5 or 6 days a week of that. And it could be 8 miles a day. Most days it is that. And I'm training next year. I want to do an actual marathon. Like I've been doing shorter races this year. Just did a 10K. And my times are getting pretty good. I don't need to take a break during it. I'm getting a lot better. My legs are starting to be able to handle it. My cardio has been there for a while. I don't get tired during it, but my legs are what give out. So I'm training for that because street running is a lot harder than treadmill running. It's just pounding. And your knees get sore and your calves get sore, all that stuff. So I'm making sure I'm doing that training smart so I don't get injured. It's like a gentle stride, but I want to make sure I'm running a long time and can handle that because I'm working my way in to be able to run 26 miles. That's a lot. For me, I was never a runner until a year and a half ago. Not even a year and a half, a little over a year ago. Really wasn't a runner at all. So anyway, I'm putting in that work. That's the cardio. But what I was also neglecting while I was building up all this cardio was strength and flexibility. I let it go because I used to mostly do that because I wanted to be, big and all that kind of stuff. Like you want to get big, you want to get strong and all that stuff. Well, I've kind of flipped it now that when I got older, I wanted my heart to be healthy and all my numbers are great. Blood work's great, almost off of my meds. Next physical, I may be able to come off of blood pressure and statin, which I've been on for years.
Nice.
So that's how big of a turnaround in a short period of time, eating properly and doing the right kind of exercise has helped. So there's cardio, there's strength, there's flexibility, and then there's martial arts training. I break those up into 4 areas, which would have skill and also movement and get tired, all those other kind of things. And you can put anything into the martial arts category. That'll either be I'm doing submission grappling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, could even be a Kali workout, could be just working on the dummy back there, whatever it is. Those are my 4 areas I'm working on. I'm trying to set up a super simple, not complicated thing to where I don't even really have to plan it out super meticulously to where it becomes this thing that I worry about. I'm just trying to just say in general, most days I want to sort of hit those areas, at least a couple, 2 or 3 of them, most days. Because how long does it take to stretch a little bit? You can bang out, some kind of a split strength routine most days, even if it's just body weight work. Vary your routine a lot. Cardio is a must almost every day. And if you're lucky, 3 or 4 times a week, you get that skill work in. Partner comes in and you get that work in. So that's sort of my own personal training, how I'm kind of structuring it these days.
Nice.
And also, OGT, old guy training, doing it in a smart way to where I want my body to feel better for doing this stuff. I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be sore and injured. I got a little bit of a shoulder thing going on because I was stupid like a year ago and fell off a gymnastics bag. I was trying to do bridges and I went back and spiked and I was like, oh, I was a little ahead of my game there. So once again, getting ahead of myself, just being smart. So for other old people out there, people, over 50 like me, closer to 60, I want to go into that like really smart and feeling good. And sciatica issue is now starting to subside because I changed what I was wearing on my feet.
Mhm.
Turns out wearing steel-toed boots 24 hours a day probably wasn't great for my knees and my sciatic nerve. So I switched that up. There's just stupid little stuff that when you get older, it just hurts. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on with me. And two more races coming up this year, and
That's badass.
got a 10 miler in November, and then a half marathon in December, and then I'm gonna keep doing smaller races, but the goal is at least one time, hopefully more than one time next year. I want to get a marathon in. I never dreamed I would ever do that.
You know what would be cool? And as you know, we've been recording a lot of additional material for the Warriors Path archive. Is I'd like to get you possibly to get in there and talk about that
Sure.
because it's an element. I'm just now starting to, well, I had a knee injury, so I'm just now starting to get to the point where I can fall forward in a quick manner. I would not call it running or jogging
Fall
yet.
forward. That's pretty good.
So I am actively falling forward in my journey toward jogging and maybe at some point running. We'll see. I'll
That's
keep you
awesome.
updated on it. But
That's how I
I'm
started.
trying to do the same thing is get that area up a little more.
Yeah.
I roll a lot, which is probably where the majority of my cardio comes from. And since the recovery of the shoulder, I'm starting to do more pad work with the gym, which has been great. So I'm hoping to kind of get a combination of that. But running, it's hard to beat.
Well, this
Or
thing's okay now, right?
yeah, yeah, actually,
Yeah, this little thing
we
happened a little while back that kind of derailed you a little bit.
yeah, it might have a tad. I don't like to admit it. I don't like to show my cards.
Doing pretty damn good in my book.
So yeah, we're working on that.
That's
You
awesome.
know, super cool discussion because it leads right into what we're talking about today, which is what I refer to a lot of times as the art of self-leadership. And I have to say, I borrowed or I got introduced to the term self-leadership from a good friend of mine, Jason Redman. And he kind of coined it for me. But through discussions with him, I found out, man, this is something that I did actively my entire life. And, you do too. We've just been a little bit talking about it, is actively taking responsibility and control of your life, leading yourself. And that's one of the things that Red commonly will say is you've got to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. He does a lot of leadership training, a lot of keynotes on the topic. And he's absolutely right. And actually, I think that the more you develop that self leadership, the more time you spend on sharpening your sword, the more leadership outside of yourself or to others comes naturally. Um, People see it when you take that action. As long as you put it out there, not are quiet about it. And there are multiple areas, in my opinion, that self leadership can happen. In the Warriors Path program, we talk about the master filter, and we'll kind of go into a little more detail into it later. But it focuses on some key elements of life, and one of them is fitness. Your health, and that is a super powerful thing because, like you said, I want to move forward in life and enjoy myself. And really more than enjoy yourself, you've got plans. I'm going to be creating things and doing probably what your average bear isn't doing. And you know that the more in shape you are and the more powerful and physically educated your body is, that tool, the better you will achieve those things. I mean, it affects everything. Anytime I start coaching, or teaching in the academy, working with a client, that's one of the first things we'll take a look at is where are you physically? Because it has such a huge effect on those things. And anyway, like I said, after kind of getting introduced to it, or just getting a name for it, for something that I had been doing for the last 40 years. Because in the martial arts, there's elements of it that is a team effort, but it is an individual effort a lot of times. You have to discipline yourself. You have to decide what you're going to do. How am I going to spend my time? And I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to focus on doing these things because I have certain goals. It's one of the great things about training in the martial arts. So, what is self-leadership? There are many different explanations of it. These are some of the things I think of when I start talking about it to clients or other people. And it's taking full responsibility for your actions, the decisions you make, and your personal growth. Um, the ability to influence yourself to take action. And I think that is a huge pillar of your self-leadership is taking action. I have this conversation or I'll hear this sometimes from individuals. I feel stuck. I'm doing the same routine every day. I'm stuck in a rut. And, what is one of the first things you got to do to change that is decide to take one step in a direction and then take the step. In other words, take action. I've heard it said too, take massive action. That's kind of perspective of the individual. And you might look and go, wow, I can't make those big steps. I don't know that I could get up early and get to the gym. I've got to go to work. I've got this relationship I've got to maintain. So I don't know that I can do a massive thing. That's okay if it is a small thing consistently. And even in the consistency of it doesn't have to be weekly or daily. If your consistency is every 2 weeks, that is okay, as long as you are taking that action. And I'll hear this quite often too, is it involves your internal motivation. And I'm going to borrow this from the industry. I'm not a big believer in that either. I'm more lean toward the self-discipline side. Sometimes I'm motivated, sometimes I am not. But I still have to take action, and we have to take action consistently because that's where the power of change will come from. And like we said earlier, I might not be able to do it daily, but if I could do one a week and then next week one more time, that's okay. Eventually, it may get easier, whatever it is, whatever skill you're developing, whatever direction you're going in, and as that starts to become easier, you'll start to develop habits and routines. Then I might put an extra day in. So that's okay, as long as you're moving in the right direction and don't necessarily want to base it on how motivated I am. I think motivation is a powerful thing, but I think discipline is above that. When I write down on this day at this time, I'm going to do this thing, the discipline to get up and do it gets it done, where sometimes I might not feel super motivated. And discipline is a developed tool as well. You can train discipline with little things that happen throughout the day. It doesn't have to be a major item. For me, I think I've talked about this before. Jen gets a big kick out of this. When I cook, um, prior to eating, I will wash and clean everything I use to cook or prepare the food for.
Clean
She
as you
thinks I'm
go.
nuts. She'll already be sitting at the table and I'll be at the sink. Oh, I got to clean it all up. Why do you do that? There's no sense in it. And I go, well, that's exactly why I make myself do it. It doesn't make sense. Even I'm in my mind going, why the hell am I doing this? But I make myself do it. It's probably done more for me because it never makes any sense. And there's always times where you make a nice meal and then Jen's over there sitting and waiting on me, but I still do it. And I'm pretty proficient at it. I don't take long, but just making the decision, that's a discipline for me. And it translates into other part of life. I would also say changing your mental perspective. I hear this too in relation to self leadership. I'm waiting on that big break. Then I will dot, dot, dot.
Mhm.
I'm waiting for this to change in my life. At some point, this will change, and then I will dot, dot, dot. Um, you've got to stop waiting on the big break. Um, start preparing for big opportunities. And that's part of taking that action. It's like, for instance, training for the race that you spoke about earlier. Now, if you haven't done all this training and it pops up and you go, well, there's an opportunity. They're having a race. I'm just going to go do it. Well, how well are you going to be? What's your performance going to be like? You've done all this preparation leading up to it. So now that here's an opportunity, someone has put together this event to do this thing, and you are prepared for the opportunity. And that's a great example in fitness, but you want to be able to do that in the financial world, your relationship world. Uh, a big pillar of the master filter is freedom. I want to be able to create more of that in life. So those are some of the elements I'll usually talk about when it comes to self leadership. And the perspective also of no one's coming to save you. No person or system is coming to save you. You've got to do it yourself. Sometimes I'm going to join this program, get educated in this thing. I'll receive this certificate, and then I will. And not to say you shouldn't do those things, but most of the time, in my experience, those things never really they help prepare me in a way, but that didn't just get me there. I had to take a control and do more. I had to take more action on top of that in order to create value in myself to achieve different things. So sometimes I'll say, well, I'm waiting for this person to open a door for me. I've got to let go of all those things. It comes down to you. So you have to sit down and, what is my plan to get from point A to point B? I have to change that perspective. Another one is getting your head out of your social media, getting your head out of your phone, get your head out of gossip. And at the academy here in Woodstock, probably for 20 something years, we've had a rule in the office. We have offices and stuff in the academy, and there is absolutely no gossip except for when you're at lunch. And I've got some employees that like to gossip. And so when lunch rolls around, like we said, it might be 10 minutes of eating, and then you got another 50 minutes of telling me what's been going on in class and with life. But ultimately it's good to get into those things, but it's a waste of time. So we put that on the list. And you have to create silence. And part of my story is ADHD when I was younger. And I had gone through multiple mentors and teachers until I got to one person. And he told me something everyone says. He goes, man, you really need to get control of your mind. It's all over the place. And yeah, well, how many times have I heard that? People were wanting to put me on drugs because of it. And it's like, you need to, you need to, you need to. And he was one of the first people that said, here's how you're going to do it. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And one of the first things he did was get rid of noise. At that time, I want you to just turn off the TV, turn off the radio because it's just junk going into your mind and creating internal chaos. And on his list was gossip. And he's telling a teenager, I don't want you to deal with gossip anymore. Cut it out. And unfortunately, I was devoted enough to making it that I did that. And it made a huge difference. So being able to turn off those things, find your silence and take time to think. Um, we're so caught up in different things and we are busy. So I'll commonly say you got to lose the busy sometimes and have the ability to turn on your mind. It's tougher than you think.
Sure. It's also, I think, important to take the time to think, but also to not think. Just take a moment and really turn it off. Go for a walk and don't have your earbuds in, and just, you'd be surprised. Just shut it all off for a minute, even if it's 10 minutes.
I think
Just,
that's creation comes from that.
yeah, turn it
Uh,
off.
for me, one of a story in relation to that is I got to go on a cruise once, and I'd never been on one. And you just kind of assume, the internet will be there, you'll be able to connect to the world and do your work. But unless you're paying for it, it doesn't happen. And I'm like, well, I ain't paying for it. And like the 2 days, first 2 days, I was like in withdrawal.
That's true.
And then I was like, okay, by the third day, I'm just going to go out on the deck that's over the engines. The water's churning, and I'm just going to sit there. And I took my notebook, and I had a moment of creation. And I think I've told you about this before. I sat there for 2 days taking notes. And I mean, it led to one of my books. It led to uh, different growth on the Warriors Path program. Multiple things benefited from that moment where I got silence, and I wasn't planning on thinking. Like you said, I just shut it off, and then creation happened. I think it's a powerful element in leadership too, because most of the time, when you start getting into the journey we're discussing, self leadership you have a goal to achieve something. A lot of time, achievement is built on creation. So,
And that's
uh,
back to your preparation, part of the discussion. Yes, you've done all the preparations. So when the ideas came, you were ready to capture them, get them down in some kind of an order that makes sense that you can then use the information. But there's another part to that. So to even get to that, sometimes you are so spun up by all of the stuff that's coming at you every day. It just happens to everybody. It's just how things are these days. We're carrying these things around, and, computers, phones, iPads, all these other things. It's constantly coming at you.
mhm,
Sometimes you just have to say, stop. That's what my running is for me.
that's cool.
It's meditation, and it has affected my life in a really positive way. Like, it has even made my work focus better. I can sit for hours at a time and get into a flow state now that feels like my running. But when I'm focusing on just getting stuff done, and it can be a whole bunch of little things that you can
Mhm.
group into, I just need to handle these emails, or I need to work on some affiliate tasks, or I need to edit video. It's a very similar thing, but video, you can be lost for hours because you're working on a single thing. But if things are chirping at you and you're bouncing all over the place, it's not a good feeling. You don't get into that flow state. And it could take you 20 minutes to hit the groove. But before you hit the groove, you got to just do something. Like you said, you got to just take action, right? So, just do something. Don't make it a thing, because sometimes you just sit there, and I've done it, a million times too. Everybody has. You sit there and you're planning to do something. All day you're planning to do something, but you didn't
Yeah.
do anything. Hey, I'm planning all day. I got this great system for planning on doing something. Well, did you make anything? Did you finish anything? Sometimes you didn't. You're like, well, that's not good. So it's like, all right, write one thing down and just do it. Do the thing, and then do the next thing. And then about 20 minutes in, at least that's what I found. I didn't read or find a thing that says it's this. It's my own data collection on myself, how it works for me.
Right.
I'm distracted of things, whatever, the phone rings, or, I get a text, or I'm interrupted, or something's on, some social media that irritates me, or I'm just not there. And then I start working on something, and then it hits about 20 minutes in. You're like, this feels really good. I've hit my stride. And you could sit there and just keep going for a while. And now it's on. You're in your flow state. That's when the stuff happens. That's when you start finishing and the ideas are coming out and you're creating things. And for me, that's how it works. It's when it happens. But it's weird how it's the same, whether we're training, because it takes a little while to warm up. Like for me, I have to run about 40 minutes before it feels like I've hit any kind of a stride, because that's how long I run now.
Mm.
It's like I'm like the sweat's not happening. Yeah, 20 minutes in, I don't feel good yet. I'm just kind of like, it's about 40 minutes in. It's like, yeah, it feels good now. Everything's just kind of grooving. You're flowing. It's amazing. It works that way across all the things. I feel that way when we're rolling. I got to get, you know, 3, 4 rounds in before I feel anything. Like it's like, I'm kind of tight. I'm moving around. By about the fourth round, 20, 30 minutes in, you're like, all right, now it's starting to get interesting. Now I can move a little bit. I'm hitting flow state.
Right.
All of our things are kind of like that to me. And it's a pleasant, I'm a big fan of David Goggins. I love David Goggins. I am a huge fan of his. I watch his stuff all the time. I read both of his books. He's hilarious. Like he's just MFing all the time. And I just love the guy. He inspires me, but I would never approach it like him. And nor would he, I'm sure he wouldn't recommend it. To me, it's pleasant. It's not this grind, go after it, get it. Like it doesn't feel like that to me. To me, it's more of a pull rather than a push. It's like it feels good for me I can hit a flow state to where this isn't necessarily this grind that I worry about the night before, that I have to grind the next day. I know we use that term a lot, and it can have a negative connotation to it unless you really, like, we don't mean it that way. You're getting stuff done. Like you're grinding, you're getting stuff done. But if you look at it as it's this, oh crap, and now it's a thing. It's a thing I got to worry about tomorrow. Am I going to be good? Am I going to be on all day? Well, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to feel tomorrow, but I'm just going to do the things. And most of the time, just doing the things makes you feel good. You hit a flow state and you are disciplined. It's backwards. It's almost this inverted thing. You're doing the things and you're disciplined because of it. You're not disciplined and then doing the things. It's backwards. But that's what I've found, and it works. And then over time, over a long period of time, it's unbelievable how productive you can be. And I'm proving it right now with my own body. I'm 55 pounds down, running races, and just probably healthier than I've been since I was 20 years old. I didn't plan on that. I just wanted to be able to walk around the block without my knees hurting. That's how it started, just walking. So I agree. It's do the thing, turn off the noise, get into your space and hit that flow. And that's my experience with it. It may be different for, anybody out there. They might not feel like that, but that's how it feels for me.
I think what you're talking about is a very powerful thing. And I key around the word state. And one of my instructors talked about state development in different areas. One of the first ones he developed was he would refer to as an animal state, a predatorial state, because of fighting. In other words, you want to be able to have that switch in the moment to kick it on, and you become what you need to become in order to dispense violence. And then click it back off, you're back to being human again. But some of the additional ones would be like a scholar state. That's one of the terminologies he uses, like when you sit down to educate yourself or to shut off the noise, to spend in a creative moment. And you said sometimes it takes me a little while to get there. And it took me a long time. ADHD, all the noise, everything going on. I'm a very busy minded person. So I could easily say it took years to get to the point where I could sit down and have the ability to hit the switch for the scholar state and enter it. At periods of time, it took an hour. Sometimes it took 30 minutes. And now I've done it for literally decades. So if it's that time of day on the schedule that I've got to sit down, and for me, one of those moments is writing. I am not a writer.
Oh, yeah, you are.
I would not say so, but I am even recently starting to devote more time to writing. Very fortunate to have a mentor conversation session with one of the guys from Fuel Hunt, one of the founders of it last week. And one of my questions was, how do you produce what you produce for the different goals you have? And he has a writing session every morning. And some are for article based, some are more for emails. And so this is something I'm trying to do more of now. But I'll get to go back and say the ability after training to exit the training state, the flow state, and then clean up, go in the living room, sit down, and then be able to mentally switch gears. That is a skill set. And I think this is all directly related to that self leadership. These are things you have to educate yourself in. You have to build those mental, physical habits. And the more you do it, the more you train it, the better you will become. You will operate on a different level. Big believer in that. I know I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit, but such a good point that you were making there.
It'll change your world.
Agreed. And allow your levels of achievement and advancement toward your life blueprint, your goals. You'll get there quicker, sooner than you think sometimes.
And there's another problem, and I'll jump in. Sorry, I'm being a little long-winded too, but
That's okay.
Once you hit that flow, I've read a lot of books on this, and we'll talk about Stephen King some other time if we get into the writing rabbit hole. He wrote a great book on it. It's called On Writing, and it's about this very thing. He writes every day as well. That's how he's been able to bang out so many novels over the years. But that flow state can be ruined by a ding from that phone.
Yeah.
Like you're there, you're in it. It literally, and it will take that 20 minutes to get it back again.
Yeah.
Like it's what you're saying about the noise. You can't stress it enough. And those are valuable minutes and hours in your day. Do you want to allow, I think you call them life units. Do you want to allow just the crap that's online? And hey, look, I look at it as much as anybody else does. Sometimes it's just fun. I look at this stuff. Hey, what's going on in the world? Hey, yeah, it's basically this. It's a toilet every day. You just look at it. Yeah, people yelling at each other and a bunch of crap that most of it's not true anyway. People aren't vetting anything, and it's just crap. And so, how many of your life units in a day you want to give to that? I mean, that's eating a cupcake for your mind. That's fine. If you want to go eat the cupcake for your mind, do it a little bit. Just don't spend all day on that. You get so spun up. It's a waste of life. When you could be doing these other things that really make you feel really good. Like you make your health better. You feel better. Your mental health is better. You can make more money. If those things, because you're not really any good to anybody or your business if you're falling apart. Or if you're all wound up and yelling at people all the time and screw you and all that, you're not really any good to anybody. You're not going to be able to build teams and accomplish anything. It's just get those worms out of your brain, get them out of your brain. And
Agreed.
And you really can change your whole world with this. I mean, you can.
Which is, directly related to the topic we're talking about. Why do most people want to step in and change their leadership of themselves? It's because they want to achieve something. They want to change where they're going, change where they are currently. So super powerful. We talked about no one's going to save you. Lose your busy, quieten the noise. And one more thing I'd add on that list is increasing your own value. Now, this is kind of related to what we're talking about earlier in preparation for opportunities. But one of the big things that will affect where you go, and I connect it to self-leadership, is sometimes it's referred to as networking, but your ability to develop certain relationships or get into certain circles. One of the principles we follow in Warrior's Path is the concentric rings of relationship. So we clearly define those rings and their relationship to you and what we're looking for. And you have the inner circle, and those are the people you ride or die for. That's the guy that can text you in the middle of the night and you'll text back. You may get 20 phone calls, but that one name pops up, I'm answering it. Um, those are the guys that are on that inner circle. You have to grow that and you have to be aware of it and intelligently build it. You also have to put energy and time into it because, I'll ask the question when I'm building this principle with clients, what makes you valuable? Why would I want to be in your inner circle? Well, I have friends who've known me for a while, but there may be certain individuals I would like in that circle that don't look at me that way. So I have to increase my value as an inner circle player. And, that is part of one of the things you're trying to do with self-leadership is you become that better person because those high level players, they're operating at another level and they want those type of people around them. And you may not be there now, but that's okay. That's a goal. But if I know that I want to be in that room in the future, if I want to develop those relationships in the future, I can start building myself now in order to achieve that level of network or those level of relationships.
That frequently happens organically anyway. Like
Yeah.
you kind of start finding each other. It's like, oh yeah, you're kind of yeah, whatever. This feels right. Like you're not hitting me with the noise. Let's talk a little bit. Let's have a cup of coffee together and that kind of stuff. You sort of find each other.
Yeah, you have those discussions on a higher level. That's something I found with mentors, teachers. They talk about different things. They think on a different level. That's one of the reasons I want those mentors and I want to develop those relationships is because it forces me to change the way I think, to change my perspective. And perspective change is a big part of that self-leadership too. You might not have that particular angle of sight, but I need to be there. How do I get there? Am I doing the things to get myself there? And that comes down to a lot of that self-education, which we're going to discuss a little bit, but super powerful thing. Um, one of the tools I use for like fundamental outlines, or I call it a filter, is the master filter. And it has some basic columns or sections. And we use this for decision making. And I'll also use it as a way when I start to kind of look at self leadership. Am I handling my business in these different areas? So the fundamentals are fitness, finance, family, freedom, and recently, probably in the last year, I have started to put on purpose. Fitness, we've been discussing it, and we have discussed the influence it has on you, and later the influence it will have on other people. You know, it's not very popular to judge by how you see someone, but it's human nature. It's what happens. If you are in good shape, people look at you differently. It's just the way it is. Their initial opinion of you is influenced. Whether it is popular to have that perspective or not, it's what happens. And all of the other benefits that we've discussed already, finance. Um, I think this is a huge area in self leadership because not necessarily that you should be an entrepreneur. I think you should, but you need to develop your ability to use the tool of finance at a high level. And it doesn't necessarily mean building a business, but it could mean building some sort of revenue stream because your ability to use that tool will better your life. And there's different levels to it, and there's a path of growth. And the more successful you are on the path, the more power and influence over where you end up you have. So the next one is pretty obvious: family and your relationships. Um, it's pretty common. You'll get in a relationship and it's good, and I don't really organize it. I don't feed it. And it can happen that way for a while and to the point of where it's struggling a little bit. It's stagnating a little bit. So what is your plan to avoid that and make sure that doesn't happen, to guarantee continuous growth of a relationship? And earlier we were discussing that inner circle. Each one of those concentric rings of relationship require a certain amount of energy. Now we'd like to just go, well, I love her, she loves me, it's good to go. The L word is being used. I don't have to do anything anymore. I can just fart in bed, make a mess in the kitchen, and it's all good. I'm covered. Not so much. Uh, it's like Jen and I will have a regular meeting um, about the relationship, and we discuss particular topics, where they're at, and we shoot each other straight, very honest. Sometimes it's a good one. Sometimes it's like, ooh, and, okay, well, I need to change that. So I'll try to, for me, I'll pick one thing and I'll go, okay, I'm going to accomplish this thing. How am I going to create a habit around it, a routine around it? Where's it going to go into my routine? It's been one of the best things I've done. And so for me, each level of that concentric rings of relationship has those ideas. And how do I maintain those relationships, grow them if that is my goal? So, that section has a huge influence, especially later in life, and especially
Mm-hmm.
when you achieve more of the next section, which is freedom. Now, a lot of times those are on there, but I put freedom on the section because we are busy bees. Like we'll get an idea, and Bob and I did this quite. Hey, I've got this idea. We're going to do this in one of the video archives. Maybe we'll do this to add additional value to our customers. So we get very caught up in the business and we'll end up working more. Okay, I'm going to do this. Well, that's an extra 2 hours a week for me. And I lose freedom, which is very easy for hustlers, busy bees. Now, that's one of the reasons it's on this. And we said earlier, this is a filter for decision making. So if I have to make a choice, I will go through the master filter. And when I hit freedom, I'll go, well, does it affect my freedom? Am I giving up more life units or is it going to give me more life units? When I try to design a business, am I creating a third job or is this eventually going to be able to operate and give me more time? And I like to try to program and build freedom into everything I do. And to me, this is right at the self leadership level because the more freedom I have, the more I can focus energy on developing myself. It's like getting up or like Coach Bob running that 8 miles this morning. He's in a position where he has the time to do that. That's awesome. So freedom is going to be a huge one. And then purpose. Um, what drives you? I'll commonly say, what is your passion source? And this is related to being motivated. Like I said, the discipline kind of leads it, but motivation does add some flavor to discipline. And I like to say, what are my passion sources, good or bad? A passion source may be an event, something that pisses me off, but I can take that energy when I need it and use it to achieve. It may be something that makes me happy, gives me great joy, and I can use that passion, that energy to achieve. So that's the fundamental master filter, and it's one of the, so these are the areas I will start with when I sit down and go, okay, I'm going to take control, going to lead myself first. What areas am I going to try to walk in first and develop?
I like that. And another trick is to figure out something that sucks and figure out how to make it suck less. You can, it's a trick, it's a mental trick, but it works. We'll go back to the running example. Most people think that sucks. They hate it. I've heard that a lot. I hate running. What do you hate about it? You know, so you start unpacking that and you got to go down to the smallest nugget of how little of this, same thing with jujitsu or submission grappling, whatever example you want to use. What's the smallest piece of this that I can do that doesn't suck? It's to say I want to do one movement out of a lock flow. I can do that. And I'm going to do it a whole bunch of times. And then I'm going to add another movement onto it, and then another movement onto it. And then that doesn't suck. Same thing with your steps. Well, I hate running. Do you hate walking? You can walk really slow and just walk a little bit and then walk your way in. It will suck less. And the more you do that, and the more consistently you do that over time, it really doesn't suck anymore. And you're doing that thing that used to suck. And if you look back over time, that was kind of a hard thing a year ago. Now it doesn't suck, and you're kind of good at it. And that process can be repeated over and over again with whatever you want to apply that to. And like Alan says, through the master filter, I love those segments and those examples. And then you put this little trick over that and go, yeah, I suck at that. It's for whatever reason. Like I hate it, I'm uncomfortable with it, or I physically can't do it, whatever the thing is. Take it down to the smallest piece that doesn't suck, or this doesn't intimidate me as much, and just do that for a little while. Do it slow. It doesn't suck. I can just, okay, I'm going to go do this for 5 minutes, or think about this for 5 minutes, whatever it is. After a while, that sort of builds it. Once again, it's pulling you to it. It doesn't suck. It becomes pleasant, and you can achieve that flow state, and you start building the habits and the systems that can get you. You might not even know where you wanted to be. You sort of, like things start popping up that you never even considered. It's awesome. You can do it. You can, even if you can have a 9-to-5 job. You don't have to be an entrepreneur or build businesses or do things. We're just wired that way. But you can do this with jobs or fitness or anything like that. Just get that little piece that doesn't suck and build on it. And over time, I think there's power in that. And I'll steal something from, I think his name is James Clear, the Atomic Habits guy. Willpower at some point always fails, because you will fall to the level of your systems. Mm. You won't rise to the level of your willpower, because you will break at some point. Everybody does. You break. But if you have systems in place, like the master filter, or just these little nuggets of things that don't, so I can always go back. What's the lowest common denominator that I can always fall back to? Let's just say I just can't, I'm just getting killed on the mat. Well, I can do this. I can at least do this. And this is pleasant for me. I'll find some pleasure in this thing. It's attractive. It'll pull you to it. You can build that back up over time, and it doesn't suck as much because you've built a system that you can fall back on. Because you'll feel like crap if you're like, man, I quit today.
Yeah.
I quit. I didn't make it. Well, no, you overshot where you are. And then you found out what that is. Okay, well, that's not where I am. It's where I thought I was. But I got a little ahead of my skis. I thought I could do this, but I'm not quite there. So let me not kick myself in the ass. Let me go, okay, but didn't make it. Let me fall back on my systems, go back to what sucks less. I think you'll find that you'll get there quicker than you would if you tried to gut yourself and go, yeah, I'm going to make myself do that. Because that's not very pleasant. That will fail eventually. And then you'll feel like an ass. You'll feel like a quitter, and you'll probably quit. Or you could do something like this and build a system, whatever it is, your own system. Use Alan's examples, whatever. Build your system, fall back on it. At whatever level you are, just do the things and watch what happens. And step back and be the observer for a little while. Don't get out of your head. Just watch it for a while. Watch what happens. Do it for a month. Just pick a period of time. Do it for, a day, and then a week, and then a month, and say, okay, well, that wasn't so bad. And then you'll prove it to yourself. Don't listen to us. Go do it for yourself, and pick whatever thing it is you want to do. I mean, we're using, martial arts and running and fitness and things like that, but this stuff's real. I mean, we do it. We do these things, and, we're not saying, hey, be like us or whatever. No, This is great. Anybody can do it. Do this for yourself.
Mhm.
Pick whatever area you want to improve in, or just feel better about, and mess around with these things and then make it your own. JKD it, you know,
Yep.
make it your own. Um, I definitely wandered around a little bit on that, but I love this. I love this discussion and where you're going with it because yeah, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle with it, which is this came from two questions from some of our followers, and which led to the whole topic today. So, quick little story that's connected to what you're saying. It's like earlier I was saying I'm trying to get to where I can run, and the first part of running, the the the, the thing that speaks to me is the pain.
Yeah,
Once the body's warmed up, I'm okay.
sure.
So, the gym, the garage, the driveway behind the house kind of goes downhill and comes back up, and I have neighbors. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to walk down and walk back up this hill until my body is warm.
That's it.
Then I will go. And then probably a couple of weeks of that. And then I started carrying a dumbbell. I think it was like a 10 pound. That struggled for a while, but it warmed me up quicker. And now it's gotten up to one of the kettlebells. And a funny
Awesome.
story, the neighbor comes out in the mornings, they're on their way to work, and they both leave at the same time. And I could hear the wife talking to the husband, I think is the husband, and she's like, "Is that a cannonball? What's he carrying?"
Yeah, I'm a reenactor.
All right. Well, anyway, what
That's awesome.
what are some physical or some practical steps that you can take to develop self-leadership? Um, some of the key ones for me: set a clear and measurable goal. When you sit down, we were talking about the master filter, but what is your life blueprint? Uh, People that I work with and coach with, it's one of the first things we start with is where are you going overall? Set your bearing for your course. And I'd like to know where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Because a lot of us will say, I'm going to do this next year. But it's important, we're starting from 1,000-mile view. Where do you want to be in 20 years? Because that will influence what you do now. Now, you may not be working on those big goals right away, but just mentally being aware of them helps us choose a more intelligent direction or bearing to walk in. So sit down and spend some time to clearly think about where you want to be. Um, Coach just mentioned this: establish habits and routines. Um, Being understanding a habit and how to create it. And he mentioned Richard Clear's book.
James Clear. Yep.
James Clear. He has a really good process for that. And there are many ways to do it. I have a unique way that I've learned in my journey. When I want to develop one, this is how Alan does it. And then routines, which for me is a series of habits. An example for me is writing an article. I have a list of to-dos that when I sit down to write an article, I check them off as I go because writing the article is like only one part of it. You have to have keywords for it. You have to have hashtags for it. You have to have um, written posts to introduce it in different media outlets. So it took about 4 hours to go through all of this. And then part of the process is I may be sending emails to people, go, hey, if you'd like to use this, here it is. Well, that is a routine. It's a series of habits. And the more you practice routines, the shorter they'll get. You'll condense them, especially if your goal is to condense them. So now that same routine that a year ago took me really over 4 hours, I had to say, I'm setting aside the first half of my day, is a 2 hour routine now. And so now I've gotten better at it and created more time where I could do additional things that are related to the same topic, or I could move on to something else on that day. So establishing those habits and routines, um, the ability to hold yourself accountable. And on the same topic we are just discussing, don't be too hard on yourself when you don't make it. I mean, the truth is, all of us fall short.
Yep.
Yeah, we all fail. Failure is absolutely part of growth.
all
There's
the
no
time.
way around it. And I probably should, we'll do one of these on becoming a wisdom seeker. This is what we call it in the academy. People will say, Sifu, I can't do it. I failed. And I failed yesterday. And so and so tapped me last week too. And it's a very common response. Now I go, well, you need to become a wisdom seeker. Well, and it leads right into the conversation. What does that mean? And ultimately, what it means, and we may do a session on it, is you chase failure. We're going to become aggressive toward failure. I not only want you to fail, I want you to go get the biggest guy on the mat, Big John in my case, and just go roll with him. I know I'm failing with Big John.
Sure.
He's almost 400 pounds. It's a whole different aspect. But I do it on purpose because I know the education that comes out of it. So I won't spend too much time on it, but hold yourself accountable. And, don't be shut down or put on the brakes because of failure. And you have to have a system for accountability. A lot of times that is writing down a goal and, putting that goal in a place that will remind you of it. Some people can put a sticker on a mirror. I have a particular notebook. I'm big on notebooks, and I have a goal book. And on my schedule annually, I have time set aside where I'll sit down and go through it, or the section that's related to this year. And I'll open it up and I'll see the first. God damn, I haven't done that. I've got to fix that. So now I have to. It forces me to go back to the master filter, go back to the blueprint, and go. Okay, I got to do this. Where am I going to devote the time for it, or am I going to take it off my list and move it later in the year? So hold yourself accountable. Um, Grow your self-education process. This is huge. And again, I could talk about this for hours. Self-education is extremely important. Actually, the next book that's hopefully coming out next year, it's at the editor right now, is on this topic. Biggest book I've written.
Nice.
And it's on developing your own self-education process or system. There's no system out there that will educate you to the point of greatness. It'll get you started. That's not their job. Most of the time, those systems are just wanting to turn you into an employee, not a great achiever. So it is up to us to create our own education process, and there's different elements of it. And one is just learning how you learn.
Yep.
Mine's different. Like I think on whiteboards, irritates the hell out of Iris Matthews because that we used to have like six of them at the school, and she's like, "There's no need for this." I once covered a wall at one of our academies in mirrors, and Greg Nelson and I had, by the end of 2 or 3 days, just filled this entire probably 40 feet of mirrors with breakdowns on clinch. I also had on there different sweeps from judo and combinations. It was just ridiculous. But that's how I think. And now that I know that, when I go to self-educate, what do? I pull up the whiteboard. I know that works for me. So part of that is learning how you learn and the sources you learn. And that directly relates to the next one is mentors and educators or examples of where you want to be. You may say on my life blueprint, I want to do this thing in 20 years. Well, look around and see who's doing that now, if it exists. You may have a goal that's no one's doing it yet. Um, but if you can find that, see if you can mentor with that person. Sometimes a mentor relationship can grow, and you grow the relationship, and because mentors, I'm here to tell you, finding someone who is a high level person that is chasing something, it's awesome to work with them because they make you better too. So sometimes those guys are looking for those individuals because it's you feed each other,
Yep.
but sometimes they're not. And there's a big industry recently on coaching. I do it myself. I have people that I pay to coach me. And it's grown over the last couple of years. The first time I did it, I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to pay this guy this much money for an hour of his time, you know? But then I did it. And then Well, honestly, it probably took 6 months of work. I still had to do the work, but his guidance and his perspective, one of the big things that he changed the way I think. That was well worth that money. And I'll tell you now, after 2 or 3 years of doing it, I spend way more than I ever thought I would on coaching with mentors because of the influence and the change it's created in my life.
Smart.
So finding those mentors and making them part of your self leadership and your self education, huge. It's going to be a major influence. Okay, so the next thing to just discuss and is the ripple effect that self leadership will have. A lot of times we'll approach this topic. I go, well, I want to be a leader. I want to improve my leadership. And so we find out I have to start with me, self leadership. But sometimes for me, I'll get super focused on that self leadership. I mean, this is a story of my career. I always wanted to study multiple martial arts, and I just threw myself into it, which is a story into itself. I didn't have a life other than inside the academies. And people would see those things and it would motivate them to do stuff. They'll go, you know what? I need to step up my game in this area, whether it be the combative arts or I need to work on my fitness. And I didn't even notice it. And I've got mentors like that. They didn't even realize I'd actually approach them and I go, hey, I'd like a mentor relationship. I'm willing to pay you. I want to know what you think. I want to know your perspective. They'd be like, me? I never thought. I go, man, I've actually had this conversation with someone. Do you not realize how your life motivates other people? Most of the time they're no, but it does. And that is that ripple effect. And, what the cool thing is we've somewhat discussed that. And I know I don't want to blow the big secret here, but it's Bob and Tanya Paulson's story. And I know that he is going to be doing a podcast with Tanya at some point to tell this story, but it is a awesome example of this thing. Who started first? I believe it might have been you, right?
Um, that was an odd thing. We were sort of there without knowing it at the same time. And I won't get into too much because Tanya get mad at
Right.
me because I'm letting it all out. But we were both in places that we weren't happy with. Overweight, everything hurt, and it was coming off of all the COVID craziness and
Mhm.
eating Oreos and cereal and all the bad things that went with that. You fall into a bad place, and we both just kind of didn't like who we were at that point. And Tanya's the one who challenged me.
Oh, okay.
We were making. It was like, hey, how many steps are you getting? It was that kind of thing, and so that became a bet. And that was just the fun part. We were already sort of dropping into these habits. And like I said before, you can walk. If you can't do that, you can just take a few steps. You just start with those little teeny pieces. And it was a thing where I barely could. Like my knees were really bad. Everything hurt. And I didn't have my Chaz anymore, and we didn't have Molly back here who just did a little visit. I didn't have a dog to walk every day. That's one of those habits that sort of keeps you on track with you
Mm.
walking, doing 3 dog walks a day. And it's just one of those dark places where you're like, man, you become a couch potato and everything sucks. Well, Tanya was, in a different way, sort of with her own story in a similar place. And we talk all the time anyway, but we sort of found each other with that. And I was the least likely. She'll say this to you. She goes, you were the last person I would have thought of that would be my accountability buddy. It's true. Like it's like, the nerd who does the videos, I've been training my whole life too, but I'm usually looked at as the nerd who, does the numbers and used to make the knives, and I'm the video guy and all that. But we ended up being perfectly compatible accountability buddies, and it got brutal. It did. And it's that is exactly the process that I was talking about. It sort of built and built and built, and we had fun with it and harassed each other. And we'll tell the whole story at some point. But
I'm going to cut you off and because the story is coming.
it's really fun.
But a
But
classic
yeah,
example of you both through your own self-leadership motivating the other person
and we
and
didn't
being
talk
able to
about it.
watch it.
It was real quiet.
Yeah,
We didn't say
it was
anything to
cool.
anybody. It's just what happened there. A year of it, and, 6 months of it, and then it was, what are you guys doing? It's like, well, we're not talking about that right now.
The world noticed it. You didn't have to say anything.
We weren't even thinking that way.
Yeah, well, exactly what I said earlier. It's just, everybody around you is going, "What the heck is something is going on here?" That's
Yeah,
cool.
that'll be a fun one. Yeah, that's a nice little taste of because she'll have to be on to share her side of things.
Oh yeah,
And that'll be a fun thing we can talk about. I think we're going to do that one on the CSW podcast because we
awesome.
haven't done one in a while. But yeah, we've been talking about actually doing that show soon and saying, we're not done with the journey at all. It's just this is kind of how we got to where we are at this moment, and it's a fun one. And I think a lot of people will enjoy that one,
Awesome.
and it's you can make it your own. You can make that one your own. Yeah, it's
Sweet.
fun.
All right. So, as a closing thought, remember, before you can lead others or influence others, you've got to get to the point where you're leading yourself. You're taking control of yourself. That's where, in my opinion, it starts. Taking ownership of your life is the most important thing you can do to reach your full potential, to achieve the goals, to get on that lifetime blueprint and end up where you want to end up. You want to lead yourself to be the best version of you, and everything else will follow. You start sharpening that initial tool, that tool will help you achieve even greater goals. Guys, shift your perspective, take the action you need to, and transform your world. Hey guys, thanks for listening today. If you're getting value out of the podcast, please give us a follow, like, and subscribe. Also, if you know anyone that would benefit from the information we're sharing, please share us with them. We appreciate it. It helps the podcast grow.